The August 10th, 2010 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
President Adair.
Here.
Ms. Andrews. Mr. Antelli. Mr. Barker. Here. Mr. Beebe. Here. Mr. Bronson. Here. Mr. Cassetti. Here. Mr. Colby. Here. Mr. Daniele. Here. Mrs. Draw. Here. Mr. Eckel. Here. Mr. Esposito. Here. Mr. Gamble. Here. Mr. Gamina. Here. Mr. Haney. Mr. Hanna. Here. Mr. Hyder is excused. Mr. Howland. Here. Ms. Cayley. Here. Mr. Lee. Here. Mr. Lightfoot. Mr. Monero. Here. Mr. McCann. Here. Mr. O'Brien. Here. Dr. Quattro. Here. Mr. Rocco. Here. Mr. Tucciarello. Here. Mrs. Valerio. Here. Mr. Yolovich.
Please stay seated. I would like to introduce Father Larry Tracy from St. Michael's Church of Rochester, who has been invited tonight by Legislator Monroe. Father?
Good evening. This is my second time praying over this august body. It's always nice to be invited back, let you know you haven't worn out your welcome, at least yet. I want to dedicate this prayer to Edwin Rivera, who 47 years ago was the first Latino ever elected to public office when he was elected to represent the 5th Ward in the city at the Board of Supervisors. The 5th Ward is where St. Michael's Church is located. And also to former legislator Jose Cruz and current legislator Saul Monero, who, like Edwin, are from the fastest growing minority in Monroe County, the Latino community. Let us pray. O giver of laws that are eternal to our ancestors, we ask you to bless this gathering of our elected representatives. Guide their deliberations, that they may guarantee equal justice under the law for all residents of this county. Give them wisdom so that they may make laws in the spirit of the Bill of Rights of our Constitution, protecting the rights of the minority from the tyranny of the majority. And we make this prayer with the vision of the bright city set on a hill, and with generosity and love. Amen.
Father Tracy? Father, thank you on behalf of us. Good job as well.
Oh, it's an honor.
Thank you. Legislator Glenn J. Gamble will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Legislator Gamble.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I ask that you please stand without objection. We will now take agenda item number 38 out of regular order. Agenda item number 38 is moved by Mr. Quattro, seconded by Mr. Bronson. Will the clerk please read the resolution memoriam for Mr. Edward T. Marinetti, former Executive Director of the Monroe County Water Authority.
Expressing regret of the Monroe County Legislature on the recent passing of Edward T. Marinetti. Be it resolved that the Monroe County Legislature hereby expresses its deep sympathy at the recent passing of Edward T. Marinetti, former Executive Director of the Monroe County Water Authority. And whereas Ed passed away at age 59 on Friday, August 2nd, 2010, and whereas Ed began his career selling industrial pumps for Glauber Equipment based in Buffalo, later starting his own business, Eden Associates, with his close friend Dennis Pelletier. And whereas Ed will always be remembered as a man dedicated to his community, his family, and to public service. In the community, Ed proudly served as the chairman and town leader for the Greece Republican Committee. As a public servant, Ed was the Ogden Highway Superintendent from 1992 to 1998, when he was named Commissioner of the Greece Department of Public Works. And whereas most recently, Ed served as the Executive Director of the Monroe County Water Authority, where he began the difficult task of restoring the reputation of the authority by expanding the quality and scope of services while maintaining stable rates, and as a result, earned the distinction of Public Works Leader of the Year in 2009. And whereas Ed is survived by Lorraine and his two children, Lisa Marie Egan and Brian Marionetti, as well as his two grandchildren, Michaela Grace Egan and Jacob Edward Egan, and numerous relatives and friends. And whereas Ed will long be remembered for his leadership and his contributions to our community. And be it further resolved that the Clerk of the Legislature is hereby requested to forward a copy of this resolution to the bereaved family. This resolution was adopted with each legislator rising in his or her place for a moment of silence.
Please be seated. You've received your copy of the Journal of the Day, 8 July 13, 2010. Without exception, the journal stands approved as submitted. There's a hearing loop in place tonight to assist those that are hearing impaired. Anyone requiring assistance should inquire in the clerk's office.
If you have a cellular phone, pager, or other electronic device in your possession, we would request that you silence them for the duration of the meeting. Thank you for your cooperation.
Legislators, the referrals submitted to the legislature for the next committee cycle are in your folders. This evening there are several proclamations scheduled. Madam Clerk.
Director of the Susan B. Anthony House, please come forward. Also President Jeffrey R. Adair and legislators E. Daniel Quattro, Harry B. Bronson, Kelvin Lee Jr., Carrie M. Andrews, Cynthia Cayley, Debbie Draw, and Mary A. Valerio. Also, this proclamation is brought to you by County Executive Maggie Brooks.
Wow, that's a lot. Hi. Good. How are you? Congratulations. This is the most legislators I've ever seen up here.
Whereas born on February 15th, 1820 in Adams, Massachusetts, Susan Brownell Anthony is arguably the most well-known woman suffragist. The second of 7 children, she arrived in Rochester, New York in 1845 when her staunchly Quaker family relocated to a farm along the Erie Canal, which became a meeting place for anti-slavery activists such as Frederick Douglass. A teacher by trade, she was active in the abolitionist, education reform, labor rights, and temperance movements, but detested that women were not taken seriously because of their second-class status. Shortly after meeting fellow activist Elizabeth Cady Stanton, she attended her first women's rights convention in 1852, and soon thereafter dedicated her life to that cause. In 1866, Anthony and Stanton founded the American Equal Rights Association, and in 1868 began publishing a newspaper called The Revolution in Rochester. And whereas Susan B. Anthony called for the first women's suffrage convention in Washington, D.C. in 1869, and in 1872 was arrested for voting in a federal election. True to her word, she never paid the $100 fine. Between 1881 and 1902, Anthony Stanton and Matilda Jocelyn Gage published 4 volumes of the history of women suffrage. In 1887, they formed the National American Women Suffrage Association, which Anthony became president of in 1892. She continued to tour America and Europe, giving between 75 and 100 speeches on equal rights every year. In 1900, she helped raise $50,000 and pledged the cash value of her life insurance to meet the University of Rochester's financial demands to allow for the admission of women. On August 18, 1920, the 36th state ratified the 19th Amendment, also known as the Susan B. Anthony Amendment, to the U.S. Constitution, giving all women in the United States the right to vote. Susan B. Anthony died on March 13, 1906, in her home on Madison Avenue. And whereas for the next 40 years, her house was in the hands of private owners. In 1945, the Rochester Federation of Women's Clubs raised $8,500 to buy her home and make it into a museum, celebrating her life and her fight for equality. Designated as a National Historic Landmark in 1966, the Susan B. Anthony House has undergone extensive restoration to return the interior to its appearance the last time she lived there. Between 1979 and 1999, the U.S. Mint produced more than 888 million Susan B. Anthony $1 coins, first released in Rochester. Throughout 2010, we celebrate the 190th anniversary of her birth, the 90th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, and the 65th anniversary of the Susan B. Anthony House, honoring the incredible sacrifices and perseverance of Rochester's proudest daughter, Susan B. Anthony. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Maggie Brooks, County Executive, Harry B. Bronson, Democratic Minority Leader, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, E. Daniel Quattro, Majority Leader, Calvin Lee Jr., Assistant Democratic Leader, Carrie M. Andrews, Assistant Democratic Leader, Cynthia K. Lee, Legislator District 28, Mary A. Valerio, Legislator District 3, and Debbie Draw, Legislator District 9, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor the devoted stewards of the Susan B. Anthony House for their dedication to the legacy of Susan B. Anthony and the 90th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment.
When Susan B. Anthony was a young girl, her teacher said, "No, I can't teach you long division because stretching your brain and challenging you intellectually might affect your fertility or your ability later in life to be successful." Her father, in great wisdom, got her a private tutor so she could learn long division. Susan B. Anthony was born into a world where she couldn't be a witness at her own trial, where she couldn't open a bank account or own property in her own name, where women were really considered property, first of their fathers and then of their husbands. But it was an amazing transformation that happened, and thanks to a whole 2 generations of wise men who eventually were those who had the freedom to vote, to allow women the right to vote, what really happened in August of 1920 was so much more than granting the right to vote. It put into the United States Constitution the affirmation that half of its citizens did in fact deserve the human dignity and the right to exercise participation in this democracy. Susan B. Anthony thought that 100 years after women had the right to vote, we would see the kind of change in civilization that she hoped for in terms of health care and education and civility in our places of legislature. We have 10 more years to accomplish the work that Susan B. Anthony hoped for. This is a beautiful proclamation and a wonderful honor for those at the House who are seeking to keep her legacy alive. Susan B. Anthony would challenge all of us to continue to be actively engaged citizens, keeping in mind the common good. And I am grateful and thankful to be honored to receive this on behalf of the Susan B. Anthony House. Thank you.
Would representatives from Star of the West Flour Mill in Churchville, New York, please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair and Legislator Robert J. Colby. Whereas in 1810, the Star of the West Flour Mill in Churchville was founded by Samuel Church as the first flour mill built west of the Genesee River. By the beginning of the Civil War in 1861, the mill was one of 24 mills operating on the river. And whereas today the Star of the West Flour Mill is the last remaining flour mill still in operation in the Rochester area, and one of only 6 in the state of New York. The Star of the West Flour Mill continues to be a great example of the ingenuity and work ethic of our local business community and workforce. And whereas the flour mill in Churchville, having survived substantial economic changes over the course of many generations, currently produces 500,000 pounds of flour each day, employing more than 20 employees and operating around the clock 6 days a week. And whereas the Star of the West Flour Mill helps to sustain the local wheat industry by purchasing most of the 3.5 million bushels of wheat it uses each year from local upstate New York farmers. Monroe County is proud to be home to such a successful business. Now, therefore, we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, and Robert J. Colby, Legislator District 20, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby recognize and congratulate Star of the West Flour Mill in Churchville, New York, in recognition of their 200th anniversary.
How do you follow Susan B. Anthony? I mean, kind of tough, but yeah, it still surprises me today, you know, that there's still a flour mill in this area, what was once known as the flour capital of the United States, the flour city in Rochester, and it's a little known fact that there's still one in Monroe County, but it's been there for 200 years. Was started by a gentleman from Massachusetts, actually, and still operating today, has been continuously for 200 years. So thank you very much for this great honor, and we cherish it. And Robert here is one of our suppliers of wheat, so we want to continue to have a good relationship. Yeah, and then we've got the other side here, but to continue to, we need. We're going to get him involved too here, but. Of course, Robert and about 150 other Western New York farmers supply the flour mill with wheat. And if we didn't have the support of the farming community, we wouldn't have a flour mill in Churchville today. On the other side, of course, we also have to have customers. And the gentleman behind me, yeah, right, actually works for a customer of ours. So it's kind of ironic that we have this today. But thank you again for this honor.
Would Mamadi Karoma and Shamel Hardy please come forward? Also, President Jeffrey R. Adair and legislators Calvin Lee Jr. and Willie Joe Lightfoot. Whereas, for more than 20 years, the Hillside Work Scholarship Connection Program has been pairing Rochester City School students with part-time work experiences and scholarships. 2 of the 2,800 students currently enrolled in the Youth Empowerment Program, Shamel Hardy, soon-to-be junior at the School of the Arts, and Mamadi Karoma, soon-to-be a junior at Jefferson High School, were recently given the chance of a lifetime through their hard work and dedication. And whereas Shamel and Mamadi were selected as 2 of the 288 international teams from 21 countries to participate in the Coca-Cola 2010 Fédération Internationale de Football Association World Cup Flag Bearers Program. Only 6 of the 288 were from the United States. On June 18, 2010, Shamel and Mamadi had the honor of carrying the American flag during the opening ceremonies at Johannesburg's Ellis Park Stadium for match 22, the United States versus Slovenia game, which ended in a 2-2 tie. And whereas Shamel and Mamadi achieved the honor of flag bearers because of their successful participation in Hillside's Work Scholarship Connection, including their academic accomplishments and their exemplary employment at Wegmans. They experienced the thrill of meeting the U.S. soccer team and were taken on a safari while in South Africa. And whereas Shamel and Mamadi proudly represented the Rochester area, program sponsors, their youth advocates, their schools, and their friends and families in front of more than 45,000 fans in the stadium and millions of people watching on television around the world, it was an extraordinary opportunity that they will not soon forget. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, Jeffrey R. Adair, President, Calvin Lee Jr., Assistant Democratic Leader, and Willie Joe Lightfoot, Legislator District 27, on behalf of the entire Monroe County Legislature, do hereby honor Mamadi Karoma and Shamel Hardy for their hard work and for representing the region.
Thank you. South Africa was definitely a great experience for me, and as well as Mamadi. You know, seeing the area that I was in develop over years and the social studies books and things that I learned, like I said, it was a great experience. I'm still speechless about it, and I cherish it all my life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a great honor. And my dad always told me that you cannot walk backward into the future. So this is like a chapter of life. You got to turn the page and move on. Thank you very much.
We will now recess. There, that's better. Legislators, you all tonight received at your desk, before I do that, this month's Flower of the Month, which is, that's right, it's the Rose of Sharon. And instead of going through tonight and spending 5 minutes talking about it, I thought I'd give you a fact sheet all on it, because I would like to see all of you think about a Rose of Sharon in your neighborhood. Thank you. We will now recess for the purpose of holding one public hearing. I declare open the public hearing on electing the Retirement Incentive Program as authorized by Part A of Chapter 105, Laws of 2010, and authorizing the county to offer local incentives for eligible employees of Monroe County.
There are no speakers registered for this hearing.
There being none, I declare this public hearing closed and convene the August 2010 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. At this time, there are no formal committee reports scheduled for this evening. We will now hold the public forum. We have several people registered to address the legislature. Mrs. Rossi.
If you require assistance, a deputy will assist you in approaching the lectern. Please use the center aisle and come forward when your name is called. You will have 2 minutes in which to address the legislature. Please conclude when the timer sounds and exit through the back of the chambers. Thank you. Our first speaker is Mary Ann Heroux.
Hi, I'm an inner city resident, Mary Ann Heroux. I want to accomplish a goal to help correct bad behavior in some, not all, but some welfare renters to respect the place they live in and their neighbors when they move into a new street. In certain areas of Chicago, recipients have to take a course in how to be a good neighbor. No drug dealing, no loud music, curfew and supervision of children, humane treatment of pets, etc. Yes, it does financially affect Monroe County. I lived in the city most of my life. 1 or 2 disruptive welfare families will cause for sale signs to go up by tax-paying homeowners. I've seen it happen. The street ends up with deteriorated rental properties or boarded up homes. Take a ride down Joseph Avenue or Remington Street if you don't believe me. Just a talk or video by their social worker saying, you have a responsibility to the street to make it good or bad helps. I told one welfare recipient, I expect people to act like ladies and gentlemen. Mary, I like that, was his comment. A young man playing loud music told me, no one ever said I could play loud music on a boombox. I also resent the fact that the first truck visiting the recipients is cable TV and the second is Rent-A-Center, when our working poor have neither. We need help with instructing some of these people. I should not have to call 911 I repeat, the first day a new family moves in next door because of an all-night party. Thank you.
Our next speaker is David Bell.
There are many reasons to pass the resolution against wind turbines in Lake Ontario. Wind is the weakest source of energy and can't meet our power needs. There are now 33,700 wind turbines in the U.S. power grid, and they only provide 2% of our power for electricity. Wind costs more than twice as much as conventional sources of energy, and turbines are unproven in the icy conditions of the lake. Turbines work 30% of the time at best and therefore need backup. Big turbines are bird killers and are going to be placed in a migratory fly zone. Turbines will cause danger and restrictions for fishing and boating. These 450-foot turbines will be visible for 28.5 miles with flashing lights 24/7. Turbines create few permanent jobs. Most turbines and their components are imported. If this isn't enough, consider our water. As elected representatives of our county, you have the legal responsibility to protect us from potential harm. Monroe County Water Authority pumps drinking water for about 600,000 people from the same area where New York Power Authority is thinking of having contractors dig into the lake bottom to install turbines and their transmission lines. I have proof in the Great Lakes Legacy Act that there are contaminants buried in the lake sediment that have potential to cause harm to humans. Don't allow these buried chemicals to be stirred into a toxic soup that could risk our drinking water and our lives. Please, act now. Say no to GLOW. I have some handouts included for legislators to look at their convenience. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Suzanne Albright.
Good evening. Because of the amount of wind power capacity in Denmark, citizens there pay 350% more for electricity than the average American. Here in the U.S., the Cape Wind Association plans to construct about 130 turbines in Nantucket Sound. They first claimed the plan would save New England ratepayers $25 million a year. But recently, National Grid agreed to pay Cape Wind 21 cents per kilowatt hour for the same power they currently pay 9 cents per kilowatt hour for from traditional sources. So that $25 million a year in savings has changed to $82 million a year more for Cape Wind's power. Oh, and the $2 billion proposed to install and operate the turbines is now $4 to $6 billion. What does all this mean to New York? We already have the third highest electricity rates in America. And during high demand times, New York City alone uses 25% of the state's generating capacity. But here in Monroe County, we have plenty of power. Even so, our rates are soon to go up at least 9%. What would we pay for offshore wind power, primarily to benefit the New York City area? This would all sound fiscally dismal, except that Stephen Whitley, CEO of NYSIO, the organization that manages the grid, was quoted in the Sunday DNC as saying, quote, "Our job is to keep the lights on and to make sure we are bringing the lowest cost power," unquote. Lets us off the hook. Unless I'm missing something, that clearly eliminates wind as a grid power source here in New York. So remind me again, why are we considering destroying the greatest freshwater source on Earth? On behalf of the 800 people who've already signed petitions opposing GLOW, thanks to Jeff McCann for his contribution to the unanimous no resolution adopted in Greece, and to Rick Antelli, who has said for months there is no economic benefit to Monroe County ratepayers and has had the courage to act on that knowledge. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Christine Brady.
When it comes to wind turbines in Lake Ontario, it is a matter of trust. Who do you trust? A corporate giant cloaked in secrecy, or the citizens that you have sworn to represent and protect? Let's put this in perspective. After all, we have been led astray before, with enormous consequences felt worldwide to our own backyard. From weapons of mass destruction to BP's false claims to handle an oil leak thousands of feet below the ocean, all the way to the fast ferry debacle here in Charlotte. All of these disasters have one thing in common. No one did their homework. No one asked important and tough questions. The powers that be accepted the company line and followed blindly. And the result? A war that cost billions, not to mention lives, the destruction of the Gulf's industry and way of life, and a payment of over $20 million of taxpayers' money for a defunct ferry service. So please, listen to us. We have done the homework, researched and gathered the facts. Wind turbines in Lake Ontario or in any Great Lake are not just a bad idea, not just a matter of a spoiled view, but a recipe for disaster. The New York Power Authority is counting on our blind trust. Just listen to the numbers they toss around. $1 billion project. 140,000 homes are going to be provided with electricity. Lots of jobs. Where are the facts, the details? Where is the proof? If it's all so wonderful, then why the secrecy? I'll tell you why. Because it's all smoke and mirrors. And let's be real. In corporate America, it is and always will be about the bottom line. So who do you trust? A New York Power Authority spokeswoman from Westchester who just saw Lake Ontario for the first time the other day? Or the citizens of Monroe County who live on or near the lake, who fish and boat and drink its water? We ask you to do the right thing. Stand up to big business and protect this community's most valuable resource, our Great Lake Ontario. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tom Gregory.
I'm going to speak on an issue that should be moot before this legislative body, and give congratulations to the majority and minority leaders who opposed putting cameras on poles. It's a matter of presumption. I don't think that we are mature enough to handle the kind of presumption that basically a picture of a car going around the corner, not fully stopping at a light, lends to that the person who is registered to that vehicle is driving that vehicle. It's bad enough that we as human beings presume things about each other and then act upon that presumption as if this is actual. But something is inherently and organically wrong when we take a machine taking a picture of a vehicle with no identification of the person inside, and then saying that person was there by mere connection of a number on a plate to the vehicle and to an incident. I think when the majority and minority leaders stood up, along with the Ways and Means Committee, to say we're not going to have city lamps or city cameras on our poles, it was maybe one of the largest statements for the type of democratic freedoms, especially that thing that's in our preamble to the Constitution called tranquility, that a legislative body has said in a long time. Now, I have a family who I have 2 chiefs of police, I've got state troopers, and I've got some federal agents in my family, and I'm, in essence, talking against policing. Because actually the executive branch and policing would be the organization that would carry on this presumption. But I think the legislative body in that statement made in the Ways and Means Committee said we need more than executive, empowering our executive side. We need something more connected. We're not going to do it with a picture. We're not going to do it based upon a presumption. And maybe this is a statement about the way we should be handling law in the future. I think that we've taken this idea, this notion of presumption in too many areas of law too far. And I know something about that from personal experience and also working, qualifying people at the public defender's office. And I see the type of injury that's brought into individuals' lives and loss of job and inconvenience based upon presumptions in many cases that I obviously don't want to, I do not want to entrust to a camera on a pole. Thank you.
This concludes the public forum.
At this time, we'll recess the August 10th, 2010 meeting of the Monroe County Legislature for the purpose of convening the Pure Waters Administration Board for the Northwest Quadrant Pure Waters District. Mrs. Rossi.
PWAB 1, referral 10-234, authorizing lease agreement.
Moved by Legislator Cassetti, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now recess the Northwest Quadrant Pure Water District and adjourn the Pure Waters Administration Board. The August 10th, 2010 meeting of the Legislature will now reconvene. We will proceed with the considerations of local law. Will the clerk read the first item on the agenda?
Item number 1, referral 10-241, providing that local law.
Moved by Legislator Daniele, second by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Item carries.
Item number 2, referral 10-241, providing that local law.
Moved by Legislator Daniele, second by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion at this time? Yes, Legislator Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. President. And through you to the administration, I just have a few questions regarding this referral. My understanding is that it's for the county to opt into the Part A retirement incentive that's currently being offered by New York State. And my understanding of that incentive is that the county is then authorized to target specific titles that would be eligible for the incentive. So through you, Mr. President, to the administration, my first question would be to ask which titles have been targeted for the Part A retirement incentive.
Through you, Mr. President, the titles have not been targeted yet. We thought it was premature to do that before the legislature had considered the matter.
Through you, Mr. President, when do you anticipate deciding when the titles will be targeted? Isn't this information due to the state within a couple of weeks?
No, the information, through you, Mr. President, the information is not due to the state in a couple of weeks. We will be targeting positions in the fall, prior to the open period.
Through you, Mr. President, I'm sorry, I was under the impression that the county had to make a decision to opt into this by August 31st, and at that point in time had to provide the list of targeted titles to the state. Is that incorrect?
Through you, Mr. President, that part of what you said is correct and part is incorrect. It's correct that we, as a county, have to adopt or decline to be part of the retirement incentive, but the list can come later.
And through you, Mr. President, when is the list due to the state?
The list, I believe, is due by the end of the year, before the end of the closing period.
So through you, Mr. President, this list that says list of members eligible for the 2010 Retirement Incentive Program, Part A, you believe this document is due to the state by December 31st, 2010? Is that your understanding?
What I think is due by that point is the list of people who have actually been targeted. There's a much broader group who are eligible by virtue of age and years of service.
Through you, Mr. President, my question is that the list of the titles that you're going to target, at some point in time that list of titles is due to the state. At what point in time is that list due?
Through you, Mr. President, I believe that is due December 31st.
Through you, Mr. President, just so I understand, if I read the referral correctly, your open enrollment period is October 3rd through December 31st. So it's at the closure of that open enrollment period, you supply to the state the list of titles that you have targeted as well as the list of individuals who opted into the incentive?
Through you, Mr. President, correct.
And through you, Mr. President, at what point in time do you intend to communicate to the titles that have been targeted there that this would be an option for them?
I would say within a month. Through you, Mr. President.
Thank you. At this point, can I request that at the point in time that you determine which titles are that will be targeted and that communication is sent to the individuals that would meet that qualification, that you supply us a copy of that communication?
Through you, Mr. President, I don't think that would be appropriate. That would be a personnel matter, and I don't know that that would be in the purview of the county legislature. I guess that between now and then I'd consult with the county attorney.
Well, through you, Mr. President, I would just request that you supply to us the titles at least that are going to be offered the incentive. I don't necessarily need to know which employees opt into it or which employees fall under those titles, but I think since the legislature is being asked to consider this referral, which could cost the county certainly a fair amount of money if we were to approve it, I think that it would be prudent for us to know which titles are being targeted as well as the justification for targeting those titles.
Through you, Mr. President, the state law specifically gives exclusive right to targeting positions to the county executive and not to the legislative body. But that being said, I'll consult with the county attorney.
Thank you. At this point in time, what would you anticipate to be the cost of offering this incentive to the county?
Through you, Mr. President, the incentive, the way that the administration will administer it, will require that positions be abolished, so that the abolishment of the position will more than offset the cost of the incentive. We are hoping to achieve a net savings of approximately $1 million.
Thank you. And then specifically, though, my question was, what would be the cost of the incentive itself?
On the expense side, it's anticipated that it would be, for Part A, it's 60% of final average salary.
Thank you. And then cumulatively, for all the positions that you'll be targeting, what would you anticipate the cost to be?
It would be impossible, through you, Mr. President, it would be impossible to say since we don't know who we're targeting yet or if they would accept the targeting.
Through you, Mr. President, I imagine, though, in order to prepare for targeting the positions, you have to cost it out ahead of time so that you know the positions you're going to be targeted. If everyone were to accept it, you'll know what that full cost would be. Is that not correct? And at that point in time, could you supply us the full cost then of the incentive if everyone opted for it on your targeted list?
Through you, Mr. President, I guess I don't understand the question. I suppose if you submit it in writing to me, I could review it.
My question is very simply, I just want to know how much this incentive is going to cost if everyone who you target were to choose the incentive.
Through you, Mr. President, since we don't know who we're going to target yet, I don't know the answer to the question. The answer I do know is that the state estimates that the expense portion of the incentive is 60% of final average salary. We anticipate by not replacing folks that we can save approximately $1 million.
And I understand that. You've already stated that piece of information. I would just like to know, once you have targeted this incentive, what the cost would be at that point in time if everybody opted in. And if you could supply that to me. With all due respect, he's not answering my question. I'm asking for a piece of data which I understand you can't apparently provide today. But I'm just asking that that data be provided once it is prepared, because you have to figure out what the cost would be before you decide who you're going to target it to. Or else you're not going to be able to assure this body that it's actually going to save you $1 million.
Ruling on the point of order, I will say this. He has offered to give you in writing what it is. Can we move to your next question?
Sure.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. President, you've indicated the positions aren't going to be refilled at all. And my understanding is that they can be filled as long as there is at least a 50% cost savings, but it's the county's plan to not refill any of the positions that are targeted. Is that correct?
Through the President, that is correct.
Thank you.
What's that? Legislator Haney?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm trying to understand how this will work. Through you, Mr. President, am I correct in understanding that the position of anyone who accepts the offer will be abolished?
Through you, Mr. President, that is correct.
Will you be offering this, through you, Mr. President, will you be offering this to specific people? How will it be offered? Will you pre-select certain people who will be eligible for it and give them the opportunity to take it?
Through you, Mr. President, it's a multi-phase process. Part of it is simply running a query as to who meets the statutory requirements of age 50 and 10 years of service. It is providing that list to the departments so that the department heads can give a recommendation, taking into account how they would handle their workload without that position. And then it is, given the recommendation of the department head, that's reviewed at the executive level to see whether we want to add or subtract from that list. And then continuing on with what I think part of your question was, is if a particular job title is targeted in a department, the right of first refusal goes to the person, to the employee with the most civil service seniority.
So after the departments evaluate where they can afford to reduce manpower, etc., it won't be a process in which, to use a mythical person, in which Mary Smith receives a letter saying that she can take this. It'll be everybody in a particular job title will receive the letter, and if the department has determined that, let's say, they can do without two of the people, the first two, or by seniority, the two most senior people who accept it will be the ones that will be let go, that will retire. Is that the way it will work?
Through you, Mr. President, essentially, we would, since we know who has seniority, we would send the letters first to the most senior people. If we were going to eliminate, two office clerks out of a group of 5, we would send letters to the 2 most senior. If they were interested in accepting the targeting, then they would get the incentive, and it would go on down the line. if, for instance, none of the targeted people in the particular scenario I was discussing, where there's 5 clerks, were interested in retiring, then presumably we would lay off the 2 least senior in accordance with standard layoff law.
So in your, through you, Mr. President, if neither of those 2 most senior people accepted the offer, do you then send a letter to say the next 2 most senior people?
Through you, Mr. President, correct.
But the positions definitely will be abolished. Is that correct?
Correct. Through you, Mr. President.
Is that required by the state law?
Through you, Mr. President, in the preambulatory sections of the state law, it talks about the incentive being for the purpose of providing the incentive for those positions that would otherwise be reduced or laid off.
Okay. So if 25 people end up taking the option when we receive the budget in November, 25 positions the position count will have been reduced by 25. Is that what I understand?
Through you, Mr. President, correct.
Okay. And I guess my final question, Mr. President, would be if we have positions that we can abolish and still function as a government, why haven't we previously abolished them?
The question's out of order, Mr. President. It has nothing to do with the substance of this. It has to do with an HR matter, with a personnel matter. The question's completely out of order. I assume that's your point of order. Paul, you're close on this one.
I thought it was perfectly logical.
Well, are we going to wrap this up?
Yeah, as I said, Mr. President, that was my last question.
I'm not really sure it was a question, Paul, but. There is a point of order on it, and I am ruling in favor of the point of order on it. Is there any other discussion at this time? Legislator Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to clarify, I think this came up in the question I asked earlier, that the state actually does not require that you abolish the position of the person who opts into Part A. That's something that the county is itself choosing to do in the administration of this incentive. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. President, that is correct.
And so the way you're implementing this, it sounded to me as if the 2 people in your example didn't take the incentive that they were offered, then you would in turn lay off the 2, I'm presuming, the least senior people in accordance with civil service law, because the 2 folks didn't offer the retirement incentive?
Through you, Mr. President, correct.
Okay. I think that the Part A incentive can certainly be a nice incentive for folks to be eligible or to receive if it fits in with what they need at a certain point in their life. I'm disappointed to hear that is the way it's going to be implemented. I think it could be offered to folks in a way where it didn't put them in a position of choosing to retire or losing one of their colleagues if that person is then, if the person doesn't retire and then a least senior colleague is in fact then laid off. So I'm disappointed to see that that's the way it's going to be administered. But I will support the offering of the incentive, and I will, of course, be following up with you as soon as you have that information. I'm very interested in reviewing which positions will be targeted.
Through you, Mr. President, this is a point of clarification. The incentive is not a benefit enhancement to public employees. It's a cost control measure. So it should only be implemented in a way that actually reduces expenses, not provides people a golden parachute towards retirement.
Mr. President, I just felt compelled to respond. I didn't indicate that it was a golden parachute, but certainly it is. If an individual feels like it is the time in his or her life to retire, it could be a deciding factor in that decision. However, I just would restate that I'm disappointed to see that it's going to be put out as either these folks can retire and these other people can keep their jobs, or else if these people don't retire, then these folks are going to be laid off. And I think that's not certainly the ideal way to roll this out, in my personal opinion.
Roll call. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing none, I will go to a roll call vote.
Dr. Quattro?
Yes.
Mr. Bronson? Ms. Andrews? Mr. Antelli? Mr. Barker? Mr. Beebe? Mr. Cassetti? Mr. Colby? Mr. Daniele? Mrs. Draw? Mr. Eckel? Mr. Esposito? Mr. Gamble? Mr. Gamina? Mr. Haney? Mr. Hanna? Mr. Hyder is excused. Mr. Howland? Ms. Kaylee? Mr. Lee? Mr. Lightfoot? I'm sorry? Okay. Mr. Monero? Mr. McCann? Mr. O'Brien? Mr. Rocco? Mr. Tucciarello? Mrs. Valerio? Mr. Yolovich? President Adair?
Yes.
27-1 adopted. Item number 3, referral 10-231, local law authorizing lease and
Moved by legislators Antelli, seconded by legislators Hanna and Daniele. This is for introductory purposes only. Next item.
Item number 4, referral 10-231, providing that local law.
Moved by legislators Antelli, seconded by legislators Hanna and Daniele. This is a tabling motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Item carries.
Item number 5, referral 10-231, fixing public.
Moved by legislator Antelli, seconded by legislators Hanna and Daniele. This is to schedule a public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? Item carries.
Item number 6, referral 10-232, enacting local law.
Moved by legislators Hanna, seconded by legislator Daniele. This is for introductory purposes only. Next item.
Item number 7, referral 10-232, providing that local law.
Moved by legislators Hanna, seconded by legislator Daniele. This is a tabling motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Item carries.
Item number 8, referral 10-232, fixing public hearing.
Moved by legislators Hanna, seconded by legislator Daniele. This is to schedule the public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? Item carries.
Item number 9, referral 10-233, enacting local law authorizing.
Moved by legislator Cassetti, seconded by legislator Daniele. This is for introductory purposes only. Next item.
Item number 10, referral 10-233, providing that.
Moved by legislator Cassetti, seconded by legislator Daniele. This is a tabling motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Item carries.
Item number 11, referral 10-233, fixing public hearing.
Moved by legislator Cassetti, seconded by legislator Daniele. This is to schedule a public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? Item carries. We will now continue with the considerations of motions, resolutions, and notices. Will the clerk read the next item on the agenda? Mrs. Rossi.
Item number 12, referral 10-240, providing that resolution.
Moved by legislator Valerio, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 13, referral 10-240, providing.
Moved by legislator Valerio, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion at this time, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 14, referral 10-213, accepting grant from.
Moved by legislators Hanna, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion at this time, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 15, referral 10-214, authorizing transfer.
Moved by legislators Hanna, seconded by legislators Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 16, referral 10-2.
Moved by legislator Rockow, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing that there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 17, referral 10-216, accepting grant.
Moved by legislator Hannah, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 18, referral 10-217, authorizing contract.
Moved by legislator Hannah, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Legislator Haney.
Just two questions, Mr. President. Received today, which I appreciate, the list of the fees that are charged, and it indicates that the fee for the initial connection for a local call within Monroe County is $1.75, which surprises me a bit. I had been led to believe by some community people that it was substantially more than that. Is the fee coming down under this new contract from what it has been? Or?
Through you, Mr. President, Lieutenant Paul DeLalla with the Sheriff's Office. What you were provided was the current cost, and I believe the updated contract has not been finalized yet, but I believe as of right now, it's my understanding that the connection cost would be the same.
So these rates that were provided to us today, the $1.75, that's not what it will be under the new contract, but that's what it is under the current contract?
It's currently $1.75, and it's my understanding that the updated contract will be $1.75, but it hasn't been finalized.
Okay. Through you, Mr. President, do you have any idea how that compares to the fee that is charged for similar calls from state facilities such as Albion?
Through you, Mr. President, I do not.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 19, referral 10-218.
Moved by legislator Hannah, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion at this time, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 20, referral 10-219.
Moved by legislator Valerio, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 21, referral 10-219.
Moved by legislator Valerio, seconded by legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Legislator Hannah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I see that we're bonding for $300,000 for a project that's estimated maximum cost of $500,000. Through you, Mr. President, is the reason for the $200,000 difference because of the previous grant that we had just accepted a moment ago?
Through the President, Scott Adair, Director of Finance. Yes, it is true. The reason for the bonding resolution to be $300,000 versus the total cost of the project of $500,000 is that the Monroe Community College Foundation has agreed to provide us $200,000 of the $250,000 pledge on an upfront basis. As we've mentioned before, when we deal with bonding resolutions, the county needs to have in place all the funding mechanisms in order to let the contracts for any project. The $200,000 by the foundation up front allows us to reduce the amount of the bond resolution by that same amount.
Thank you. So through you, Mr. President, if there had been word of the $200,000 or the $250,000, but there had been no action made by this legislature, we would still, in most likelihood, be bonding for the full $500,000.
Through the President, without the advance funds being received from the Monroe Community College Foundation, we would be asking this body to adopt a bond resolution for $500,000. So in effect, what you're suggesting is true, that without the $200,000, without that revenue source, the bond resolution that we would be asking for would be $500,000 at this point in time.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, is there any other discussion at this time? Legislator Haney.
Mr. President, on this momentous occasion, which is the first time in at least the recent recorded history of the legislature in which we've not bonded for the full cost of the project, despite other funding sources being available, I request to be recorded as seconding the motion.
Please let the record show that it's been seconded by Legislator Haney. Thank you, sir. Just throw me a little bit off, that's all. Is there any other discussion at this time? Seeing that there is no discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Item carries.
Item number 22, referral 10-220, authorizing.
Moved by Legislator Yolovich, second by Legislators Hanna, Daniele, and Antelli. Is there any discussion? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 23, referral 10-221.
Moved by Legislators Antelli, second by Legislator Colby and Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 24, referral 10-222, accepting gift from Sands.
Moved by Legislator Draw, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 25, referral 10-223, authorizing intermunicipal.
Moved by Legislator Antelli, second by Legislators Draw and Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 26, referral 10-224, accepting grant.
Moved by Legislator Cassetti, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Item carries.
Item number 27, referral 10-225, accepting grant.
Moved by Legislator Cassetti, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 28, referral 10-226.
Moved by the Honorable Legislator Colby, second by the Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 29, referral 10-227.
Moved by Legislator Colby, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 30, referral 10-228, authorizing acquisition.
Moved by Legislator Yolovich, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion at this time, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 31, referral 10-229, authorizing acquisition.
Moved by Legislator Colby, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing that there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 32, referral 10-230, authorizing agreement.
Moved by Legislator Antelli, second by Legislator Hanna. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 33, referral 10-235, directing correction cancellation.
Moved by Legislator Daniele, second by Legislator Yolovich. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing that there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 34, referral 10-236, authorizing contract.
Moved by Legislator Colby, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing that there is none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 35, referral 10-237, authorizing contract with Villager.
Moved by Legislator Colby, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 36, referral 10-237, BR.
Moved by Legislator Colby, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries.
Item number 37, referral 10-242, authorizing
Thank you. Moved by Legislator Colby, second by Legislator Daniele. Is there any discussion at this time? Seeing there is no discussion, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Item carries. Is there any unfinished business to come before this body tonight?
Mr. President, I move that this honorable body stand adjourned until Tuesday, September 14th, 2010 at 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you.